The Columbian is pleased to welcome State Insurance Commissioner Mike Kreidler. Thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, your challenger, Mr. Patel, was scheduled to join us. Hopefully he'll meet with us later, or we'll try and contact him, but we'll go ahead and start with you. As mentioned, we are recording this. We will post it unedited on our website and our YouTube channel for the benefit of our readers. I don't remember if I mentioned I'm Greg Jane, the editorial page editor, and Craig Brown, editor of the paper and member of the editorial board, is joining us. And with that, let's see, I think I took care of all the housekeeping. So Mr. Kreidler, just take 1 to 2 minutes, introduce yourself, give a little bit of background and why you are running for re-election, and then we'll move on to some specific policy questions. And again, hopefully Mr. Patel will join us eventually. So go ahead, Mike.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Let me assure you that I'm really very excited about this job and what we have as an opportunity to look out for the insurance interests of the people of the state of Washington, which has really been my driver. People deserve the right being assured that the person who regulates insurance for them is somebody that is going to read the fine print and policies, really understand and do the kind of grunt work that's necessary to make sure that the insurance companies are living up to the promises they've made when they sold you an insurance policy. Healthcare and reform continues to be a major challenge. It has been for decades, and it's going to continue. We can do a much better job making sure they have quality, affordable health insurance for everyone. We also need to make sure that the kind of protections that we're putting into effect for consumers are something that really are meaningful from the standpoint of making sure that we're keeping the bad actors out and making sure that the companies that are permitted to do business in Washington play by the rules. I like this job from the standpoint of being able to advocate for consumers and would like the opportunity to do it for another 4 years.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you for joining us. For this position, what impact will the pandemic and the economic upheaval have, and what role will the insurance commissioner play moving forward?
Well, the pandemic has had a profound impact on insurance, and it will continue to have a significant impact for months, if not years to come, for various reasons, not the least of which is that a number of people are going to wind up either losing their health insurance or finding that it is no longer affordable to them because they don't have the kind of employment that they previously had. Employers, in many cases, because they're not going to continue your health insurance if they have to lay you off, and you got your employer was where you got your health insurance. Fortunately, we have a strong individual health insurance market in the state of Washington, but it's not cheap if you're not eligible for some financial assistance. But that remains a real challenge, particularly for a pandemic, and a pandemic that shows no signs of abating in the near future. It's going to be one that will be around for months, if not years, in the way of a challenge for us as a society. I've taken a couple of major steps to make sure that insurance companies are giving some relief to consumers, property casualty companies for automobile insurance. I pressed the companies hard to make sure that they were giving a discount to their policy holders, since people weren't driving like they were before during the pandemic, that those kind of rewards that the insurance company.
So I think, okay, we'll just kind of pick up where we left off. I believe you were talking about, for instance, discounts to auto insurance policies and the work you did in dealing with the insurance industry.
that we did that, and I've issued a number of emergency orders for health insurers. We want to make sure people have easy access to their medications, that they will grant them a longer period of time so they don't have to deplete their prescriptions before they can place an order. So that we instituted some changes for telemedicine, either by telephone, by video, so that people could still see their healthcare providers and and the healthcare provider will be compensated, and they get the services they want and need.
Now, on items like that, how much power does the insurance commissioner have, or is that up to private industry?
When it comes to emergency orders like that, no, I have some very significant authority. What I couldn't do, though, was make sure that there'd be parity on compensation. So I could require them to accept telemed, but when it came to compensation and giving parity between an in-office visit as opposed to a telemed visit, I teamed up with the governor's office. They had the authority to make sure there was parity on payment. I had the ability then to essentially require that the insurers offer that to their policyholders.
Okay. Now, speaking of healthcare, how many people in Washington remain uninsured? And is the Affordable Care Act, is the marketplace strong in Washington? Is it stable?
We actually are doing much better than other states on average by far. We were at the upper edge, and we've had a kind of a unique state environment that's continued for a number of decades. It has a lot to do with the origins of how we get our health care. We're not as dependent on the large for-profit national insurance companies. Ours tend to be much more homegrown, whether it be Primera Blue Cross or Regents Blue Shield or Kaiser. They tend to be local, and that has given us a lot more of a respite in the storm. That said, we still have way too many people. We started the Affordable Care Act when it was being instituted. We had something like 13% of our population of the state of Washington without health insurance. We were able, with the Affordable Care Act and fully taking advantages of the tools that were made available to the state of Washington, to get that down to about 6%. Now we're seeing that go up, but it's again, like so much that's happening during this pandemic, it's happening so rapidly, we have trouble getting really accurate statistics as to how many people are without health insurance today. I think it's fair to assume that it's jumped up several percentage points. So they were probably up closer to 8 or 9% today, as opposed to what we had before, closer to 6% before the pandemic struck us.
So has that jump been solely as a result of the pandemic, or were those numbers already going up prior to the pandemic?
I think we probably were starting to see some gradual changes, in no small part because the Affordable Care Act has been under very heavy attack by this administration. They never have had an alternative. They keep saying they're going to have a great alternative, but they never show one. But in between, they were going after the Affordable Care Act and making it much more difficult. And so we were finding some challenges there. There are some midstream corrections that should be made to make it more workable. Some of those could just be done administratively. Some of those would require statutory changes, and we haven't had the kind of environment at the national level to bring about those changes. But the net effect was that a number of individuals were finding it increasingly difficult when they had to buy their own health insurance in particular, to find it affordable to them, unless they receive some form of a subsidy. And that was causing the numbers to start to drift up very slowly. But it got a big jump with the pandemic because so many people were losing their jobs, particularly jobs where they got their health insurance through their employer.
Sure. So when the administration works to undermine the Affordable Care Act and make it more difficult, what recourse does the state have? What measures have you taken to counter?
We've not been shy in challenging the administration legally, been very supportive, have filed documents in conjunction with our Attorney General and with our governor to challenge the changes that they were attempting to make at the federal level. But in the end, sometimes we're successful and we can actually win in the court and slow down the changes that were going to take place. But in the end, the Affordable Care Act really needs to be revisited and reinvigorated. And I would say that when it comes to the cost of health insurance premiums, we need to do a better job of helping to make sure that people have assistance that deserve it, and so it's more broad spread than it is currently. Right now, it's more limited as to who could benefit from those types of subsidies.
Great. Craig, you have anything?
So I believe our congresswoman, who's brags about her opposition to the Affordable Care Act, says that part of the solution would be to let people buy plans from out of state. Is that any part of the menu of a solution to this?
Absolutely not. It's a dumb idea. You've got the insurance commissioners from across the country. Only 11 of us are elected. The rest are appointed usually by governors. And so many of them are appointed by Republican governors, yet they're united in saying it's a dumb idea about cross-state sales.
Okay.
Actually, there was legislation in several states, maybe 3 or 4 states that actually passed legislation allowing cross-state sales. Not a single policy, this is before the Affordable Care Act, not a single policy was ever sold or could be sold under that type of definition. There are way too many complications. You want to make sure that if you buy a plan in Mississippi, that Mississippi health plan, which is really nice and cheap, and you're saving lots of money, but when you come to Washington, you're not necessarily going to find that the doctors and hospitals will accept it. And that's a problem, because who do you complain to then? Don't come to me. I've never seen the policy.
That makes sense. Thank you. So what about, let's talk about the other plague in the Northwest this year, which is wildfire. So how will wildfires affect availability and pricing of consumer fire insurance policies, and what is your office doing to try to make things better for everybody?
Well, I just finished last week my Climate Summit 2020, and it's really because we really have to make some changes in the way we do business, because these kind of fires are very atypical. When I was a young man, like 21 years old, I was in Southern Oregon as a smoke jumper for the United States Forest Service. I know what a fire is like. I know what it's like to be on a fire line. I know what it's to feel scared on a fire line. This is so much beyond that. You can't make a comparison when you start talking about firestorms. Fortunately, we haven't had something that really mimics the California style of firestorm, like roared through Paradise, California a couple of years ago. And I had a chance to visit that fire site afterwards. This is something we've got to be prepared for. We've got communities right now that have much in common with what you saw in Paradise. And part of that is that we start to move further and further into areas where land is cheap. We're pushing up against the wildlife habitat area. And as a result of that, it's much more prone toward having fires. We need to make sure that we're doing as a society a great deal more to make sure that people can escape those fires like they had trouble doing in Paradise. And we also need to make sure that they're taking the kind of preventive steps that are necessary to help minimize the potential that their house will be affected by a wildfire. That said, from the other part of it is we want to make sure that the insurance companies don't leave the market. Right in California right now, in fact, there was a good piece on 60 Minutes just this last Sunday talking about some of the challenges as they're starting to face in this area. And I've certainly read a number of columns about it too, where they're starting to be concerned that companies will no longer be marketing in certain areas. That's something that I'd rather avoid. Let's try to see if we can make it so they can ensure that we have a competitive market, that they're reasonable prices and have real competition. And we trying to dictate that by statute is not nearly as effective as doing it by the marketplace, but we got to make sure there's some rules out there. Land use practices and building codes are high on the list of what need to be affected in order to make sure that we don't have people that are stranded without appropriate homeowners insurance available to them.
Huh. That's an interesting answer. I hadn't thought about how land use and building codes would definitely affect that. So you certainly see the suburban sprawl here in Clark County, in part because of Oregon's land use laws, which restrict that pretty severely. So folks that want to have 5 acres in the country are moving to Southwest Washington from Oregon because you can't do that in Clackamas County, Oregon, for example. So that's interesting.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to I need to run this by you. Your opponent, Mr. Patel, says in the voters pamphlet he recommends that he would serve as insurance commissioner 60% of the time, with yourself and the other person who ran in the primary serving 20% each. One, is that legal?
And two, do you have to give him your salary?
Yeah, I think that it's not very practical. I think there might be you might be able to do it legally, but from a practical standpoint, is it workable, and what problems are you really solving if you try to do it that way? I think it leads to a lot more confusion and misunderstanding than you'd have resolving problems.
Sure, and just because Mr. Patel didn't join us today, I thought I would mention his platform for the job, so voters can get a comparison between the two of you. Let's see, what else was I going to say? And go ahead.
I have one more question if I can. What should consumers of insurance, what's the most important thing they should know, and should they contact your office if they have a question or a concern about their insurance policy?
I would strongly urge any consumer, any Washingtonian as a citizen that has questions, don't hesitate to contact our office. We've got a wealth of experience in all lines of insurance, whether it be commercial insurance, whether it be homeowners insurance, car insurance, life insurance, on and on. All of it is regulated through our office, or we have the expertise to be able to give you the kind of answers you're looking for to questions. We're not going to tell you what's the best product for you. We'll tell you what the options are, but we're there also to take any kind of complaints that you have. If you're having trouble with an insurance company, contact the office of the insurance commissioner. We're available 24/7 online. regular hours for if you want to talk to a live person, or you can file a complaint that way. It's anonymous. We'll do the follow-up for you. If you've got suspicion that some deceased relative who left you an inheritance may have had a life insurance policy, contact our office. We're there to help you. We can put you in line to help you get answers to your questions. So I strongly urge people, we're a huge resource. Don't rely on what you see on television from the standpoint of the advertisements, whether it be Medicare supplements or whatever it might be. Give us a call. We'll give you the straight answer. We've got real professionals, particularly when it comes to Medicare supplements, and giving you ideas of what works and what doesn't.
Hey, how big is your office? How many staff?
About 250.
And what is the department's annual budget?
It's about 35 million.
Do you expect that to take a hit in the wake of the pandemic?
I would say no, I do not. Largely because we're not a general fund agency. If you reduce our spending, the money goes back to the insurance companies. So generally, we've been, knock on wood, immune from say equalizing the pain and suffering in state government. We've been kind of in a different category, and it's probably quite appropriate too, because this is a time when people want to make sure that they get answers to their consumer questions and have the kind of investigation with insurance companies. This isn't the time when you want to say, we've got to cut back and we're going to let slipshod insurance companies do business in Washington. And if they do bad things to you, we won't really have the resources to really do the kind of investigation we would have normally.
Sure. Craig, do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. It's been an interesting conversation. I've learned about 3 new things today, so I appreciate it.
Mike, then give us your final pitch for why voters should support you.
Well, number one is that I certainly have as much experience as any insurance commissioner in the country. In fact, I have more experience as an insurance commissioner than any other insurance commissioner in the country, serving longer than any other. The advantage of that is that it gives me the ability to know when we're being shined by the insurance industry. They're trying to pull something over on us. I'm in a very strong position to be able to help make sure that consumers get the kind of answers they want. And I've been aggressive and will continue to be very aggressive and trying to do a much better job than what we have in this country and in this state right now in the access to affordable quality health insurance. We can do better. We must do better. And I find this a real cause célèbre for me that I've been engaged in for over 50 years now.
Great. Well, Mike, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the interview. Thank you.